Good evening, dear friends. Let me welcome you to this special English language broadcast. We have distinguished guests here today, and we will be discussing a wide range of issues in contemporary political life and the international situation. In the second part of our program, our guests will be ready to answer questions from the audience. I would like to welcome Mr. Mark Ivanyo and Dr. Milan Orban. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Mark Ivanyo is an attorney from Houston who has been among the founding members of Republicans for National Renewal and serves as the group's executive director, responsible for the organization of its various activities. He is involved with several young Republican groups, particularly the Houston Young Republicans. Mark Ivanyo has contributed to many publications, online events, radio shows, or podcasts expressing his conservative worldviews, and volunteered in many campaigns for Republican candidates. Dr. Milan Orban is an architect, urban planner, and politician. He studied in Germany and lived 10 years in the United Kingdom, where he became a member of the British Chamber of Architects. Dr. Milan Orban worked in the United Arab Emirates as well. Twice during the years of 2002 to 2006 and 2010 to 2014, Dr. Orban was a representative of the Prague municipality. He was re-elected as the leader of the candidate list in 2022 for the Freedom and Direct Democracy SPD movement, and is serving as the vice chairman of the Prague organization of the party. So, my first question is for our American guest. What is the purpose and aim of Republicans for National Renewal? Can you very briefly encapsulate it, summarize it?
Thank you for the question. First of all, thank you for having me. Dobrý den. It's a pleasure to be here. So briefly, the background of the organization, we have a primary purpose. In the United States, our domestic mission is to push the Republican Party away from the America Last establishment and more towards the America First grassroots. And so the grassroots is kind of just the average American who generally supports President Trump and his policies. And so we want to take over the Republican Party from the ground level up. So at the local level, state level, and then ultimately the federal level. So we build that party infrastructure so when there is a Trump 2024, he can effectuate his agenda instead of not only fighting against the radical left, like we saw him do during his first term, he also won't have to fight against his own party members, who about half or even more stabbed him in the back at some point during his presidency, where they would say nice things about him, they'd go up to vote and vote against his agenda more times than not. And so that's kind of our primary mission, to renew the Republican Party into a party of the grassroots, the average American, who by and large do support President Trump. And then we have our international mission, which is part of why I'm here. We want to build a bridge between Republicans and then the conservatives here in Europe, because national populism, President Trump's ideology, is fairly new in the United States. But here in Europe, y'all have been doing it for a long time and very successful at it. And so I think there's a lot that we can learn from that. But also, the radical left is very well organized against us. We all know they get their marching orders, and then they're all on the same page, doing the same things, saying the same things all over the world, not just in Europe, not just the United States, but they're pushing their Marxist ideology. So the only way we can fight back is if we're united. Then we can finally go on the offensive. And I think Prime Minister Viktor Orban of Hungary has done a great job of being a great example for that, of how we don't play by their rules, we play by our own rules, and work together to fight back.
Thank you very much. And now a question for Dr. Milan Orban. According to you, what are the major challenges facing the Czech conservative movement today, and what role should your party play in this regard?
Thank you for the very interesting question. Actually, we are discussing this topic in SPD, and we came quite early to conclusion that, in fact, SPD is now only one conservative parliamentary party in the Czech Republic. You know, when we look back into the history, there is a party ODS, and this was for decades being looked at as a conservative party. But nowadays, when you see, when they are part of the government, of the five coalition government, actually they turned into liberal views. Second party, which was established in Czech Republic, it's a party called Top 09. And I remember when this party was founded, there was actually like a codex being signed by the members, and this was saying that Top 09 is the liberal conservative party set up on Christian and Judaism principles of the European culture. Obviously, everybody could agree to that, yes? So, you know, you remember many former members of ODS and ODA and Unie Svobody and so on, they were joining at that time Top 09. And what happened to Top 09? They are now complete, now progressivist party and liberal party as well. So we have been saying quite early that SPD is now the only conservative party in Czech Republic. And in fact, we are taking the role of the old ODS, and we have been laughed at, yes? But not that long. When was the last general election? And when former President Mr. Klaus, founder of ODS, he said, I am giving my vote for the SPD. Then suddenly everybody saw, aha, that's exactly the case. SPD is now the only one conservative party. So we can say as well among us now already some members of SPD as well active members helping us. They are the former members of ODS. And as well a lot of former ODS members, especially here in Prague and in Central Bohemian district, they're actually actively supporting SPD. So this is where we see our role. So we are the only conservative parliamentary party, and we are as well the only party which is not, they are calling us, we are anti-European. This is nonsense. We are anti-EU. So we are the only EU skeptic party as well in the Czech parliament. Yes. So this is the way how we looked at, and we hope as well the public are seeing us in the same way.
Thank you very much. Another question for both of you. The American conservative and Republican movement and thought emerged in specific American historical, ideological, and sociocultural conditions, going back to the American Revolution and its legacy. This also applies to British conservatism. Do you think that their experiences and ideas can be useful in the different political environment or milieu of the European continent?
Yes, I think it can be very useful. I mean, the American founding was based on self-governance, that our rights are inalienable and they come from our Creator God, not from government, and that there's a certain individual dignity and freedom. And I think that that's only can work with a morally upright people and well-informed people. And now the enemies of that freedom are trying to misinform people. We have a lot of fake news all around. I know a lot of Americans, I don't know how it is here in Europe, I think it's similar, and that they don't trust the media anymore. It used to be that everyone trusted CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, CBS. Now people take it with a grain of salt. Even people who were big supporters and still watch, they'll think, well, maybe I should double check that. I'm not quite sure about that. And so I think it gets tougher and tougher to have that freedom, but if European conservatives can kind of instill that individual freedom, that sense of dignity, and also that pride in your nation. And that's what America was built on as well, is patriotism, God, country, and family. And if you're missing one of those, you're not going to have freedom.
Thank you.
I would say the conservatism, the American style and British understanding and the continental one is slightly different. You know, I remember back in the UK at the time of Margaret Thatcher, there were quite top politicians at that time in a Tory party. And one was saying once, they were asking him what he would define as a left and right parties on the continent. And he said, there are no right parties. You know, the parties in Europe on the continent, they are less left or more left. Yes, because there is the difference, the Anglo-Saxon understanding of conservatism, it's slightly different to the European one, continental one. Because here, when you look even like German Conservative Party, you would say CD, CDU, or in the Bavarian party, CSU, yes, or other conservative parties. They have only, they have as well very strong social aspect, yes, which is not that much present in Anglo-Saxon understanding of conservatism. But now this conservatism, exactly, I agree with you, Mark, yes, it's now changing actually its definition, what it means, yes. Now conservatism, it's stronger as well linked together with patriotism, yes, and it's linked because you may say 50 years ago, you know, beginning of the century, no one was questioning what means family, you know, that man is man and woman is woman, and family is here for that to raise the children, and so on. And because these, you may say, what before was unquestionable subjects are now being actually questioned, actually put in a controversy. This is not true. So that's why now conservatism, it's very much about patriotism and defending the traditional values. Actually, we were used to. You have it in a Bible. You have it as well in other religions. Basically, now we are facing defending traditional values, where before, you may say 50 years or 2 generations ago, no one was thinking at all that they could be questioned. You know. So I would see it in this way.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question in a similar vein. Education and political institutions in media in Western society are penetrated by the ideology of cultural liberalism, of which counterculture, wokeism, genderism, and critical race theory are prominent examples. According to its critics, cultural liberalism undermines national solidarity and paralyzes social rationality. In your opinion, could the culture war between conservatism and cultural liberalism be won?
Yeah, that's a good question. Simple answer, no. I don't think that can be won, because if it could be won, the left would say right now, well, we win, and then we would stop fighting. So I think it's always flowing, it's a constant state. You can be having the upper hand, you can be dominant in the culture. I don't think you can ever win it. And I think as of late, especially, I think globally, but especially in the United States, it was always kind of going towards liberalism slowly and steadily. But as of the last decade, maybe 15 years, it's accelerated much faster. We went from not having political correctness, comedians could say whatever they wanted, to all of a sudden comedians were afraid to go on college campuses, they were being banned from social media. And so I think the left kind of got spooked that people were having too much freedom, speaking too openly, and also opposing their agenda. And so they went and they banned a lot of conservatives. And I think by doing that, though, they've awakened a lot of conservatives. And so there's going to be a huge pushback. And perhaps we can finally start winning the culture war. But I think that's part of why we're in the position we're in right now, is because we didn't worry so much about the culture war. We thought if we focused on business and low taxes and people were doing well economically, surely they would support and vote for us. But we miscalculated that, because people still were being indoctrinated with the left's cultural poison and filth. And now they're voting for leftists, even though they're doing well economically. And so, no, I don't think we can ever win it, but we can certainly start pushing back and getting the upper hand eventually.
Thank you. Dr. Orban.
Well, I'm always optimistic, so I will say we are on a winning front. But you have to understand as well, the liberalism actually changed dramatically, you know. So historically, when you were talking about liberal Democrats, that meant these were originally people, actually, they were supporting and fighting for a free society, you know. So for human rights, and then everybody has a right for certain basic values, but it turned out to progressivism, which is completely different. So I would say, you know, we have to ask, actually, who is behind all this, and what is the purpose of it, yes? And you can see it very well, how it's EU changing and what topic it has. Yes? This New World Order, it started with that, and you see it in the European Union, to have a national states and patriotism, you know, that's not possible. You know, you have to forget it. Okay, so then the actual sovereign states, they were prohibited. Yes, then separate nations. And then the next one was the family. So we have to divide the family. Family is wrong, you know, family is something nonsense, marriage is nonsense, no, forget it. Okay, then the family was dissolved, you know, like the family policies. We are being taught now in EU, you have to take a migrants because you don't have enough children, so you need to take a migrants because you need to have, I think to one point Merkel said we need to have a 95 million migrants into EU to fill the jobs. But no one is saying, so please here, Europeans, we have to work how to increase the demography, how we support more the families, that each family, they have a, like originally in the States, you know, between the wars, family, there was 3 children, 5 children, 8 children. I even remember like my grandmother, you know, at the time of Austrian-Hungarian Empire, there were normally family with 8, 9 children. That was common, yes? So they destroy the, as I said, state, the nations, then family, and when they destroy the family, not supporting it, they were coming to gender ideology, you know, to say, oh, you should not know, and you should be uncertain about it, what actually sex you are, if you are a man or a woman, or if you should be whatever. And then now they are even saying, I know the children, they are saying at schools, they are being taught, like one colleague told me in the office, that was crazy. Then he had a discussion with his daughters at home. They were saying, oh, no, it's actually, in a way, in the morning, you can feel as a man, and you can suddenly feel at the lunchtime, oh, actually, I'm more a woman, and I will be in the afternoon
You feel like,
you know.
you feel like
And
a cat,
that's
maybe, or a
completely,
lizard.
completely crazy. So it's disintegrating society to the basic roots. And then you may say, what would be then the purpose? Because then when this society is completely destroyed, then this is the best way how you can rule it, how you can dictate it. That people, they became more like some sort of biological machines, you know, like some sort of robots almost, yes? And I hope this is something what now people, ordinary people, they now tend more and more to understand what huge dangers are connected with this kind of ideology. Yes, so I hope it is now turning point. Maybe not winning yet, but turning point. Yes, and I hope I'm always optimistic, so that we will win in that way. You know, like I can tell you examples. I was with a friend when you were mentioning living in Dubai. Yes, so there you have a metro trains, and the first carriageway is women only. Yes, women and children only. With my friend, we were talking, we forgot about it, the train came, yes, it opened the door, we walked in as the two men, there were ladies sitting, and oh my God, you know, we are in a ladies carriage. So in the next stop, we moved to the other one. I was telling him, can you imagine what would happen when we take now this European ideology and we say to these ladies, oh, hello, ladies, you know, we are men, but now we feel as a woman, you know, so we join, we join you here in a carriage. I could imagine at the next stop there would be police waiting, and they would be arresting us, you know.
Sure.
So I'm asking why this sort of crazy thinking is happening in a Western world, you know.
Thank you very much for your optimistic view. Let's turn our attention to a different subject. This is a question especially for Mark. A growing number of conservatives in Europe and in the Czech Republic as well are concerned about radicalization, militarization of American foreign policy that could have tragic and disastrous consequences, as we are seeing in Ukraine and the Middle East. Is the United States of America and the Republican Party in particular ready for the reality of a multipolar world? Or does it still cling to the idea of America as an indispensable nation with a special civilizing and historical mission?
Well, you know, a lot of Americans are concerned about that too now, actually. Historically, we were the world's police. This was seen as a good thing. But I think after the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and how we saw that's supposed to be a quick war within a couple of years, turned into a 20-year war, which we lost. And they said we were taking all the oil. And as President Trump said, well, I wish we took the oil. Then we would have gotten something out of it. Instead, we just got a lot of people killed and ran and left a bunch of weaponry for the Afghans. And so I think a lot of people, especially in the Republican Party, are starting to come around and say, you know, maybe we don't need to get involved with all these wars. Maybe it's a battle between two people who may not even like us or care about us, and we should just let them sort it out. I think there's people on the left who are predominantly supporting anything this administration does, where if it was Trump administration, they wouldn't support it. So the anti-war left that we saw under George Bush then all of a sudden was okay with war under Obama. And now under Biden, they're not necessarily okay with it, but they're kind of keeping quiet about it. But I think people, Americans especially, are getting fed up with all the unlimited aid to Ukraine. I think after the first 40 billion, people said, okay, they need it. 40 more billion came by. A few people said, maybe they don't need that much. And then 40 more billion came, and they finally said, okay, this is too much. We don't want to support this. Now we have this stuff going on in the Middle East. And again, people are saying, do we really need to be involved so heavily? Do we need to sell out our country as people are suffering in our country? For example, in Ukraine, we are propping up that country. A lot of the aid we gave wasn't just to weaponry. In fact, I think 20 or 30% of it was to weaponry. The rest was to support their economy, for welfare, for hospitals, for transportation and goods and services, things that our country is suffering in. And so a lot of Americans Even just independents who don't have a specific political affiliation are saying, hey, when are we going to put America first? And so that's why also it's actually good for President Trump, because that's probably why he's overwhelmingly winning, because he's calling for peace all across the world.
Thank you, Mr. Orban.
Yes, I was always very much supporting Donald Trump, so as well, you all, I hope know, he is the only president in the modern history of the US who hasn't started a new war during his presidency. Yes, and I understand his actually proclamation, "Make America Great Again," that he will do it from the inner country. There is so much to be changed in the US. Nowadays when you go to US, it's almost like on a start of a civil war, sorts of. Yes, and when you go to the country, I know Donald Trump, he was saying it as well. I'm following him on Twitter and Facebook, like he was saying, oh, where all this money goes in the US, when he goes to the airport in China, it's brand new, Singapore, brand new, Hong Kong, wherever he's landing at the airport in the US, it's looking like third world country, and the whole infrastructure, So I would say, Europeans, they were immigrating by millions to the United States, 19th century, even up to the beginning of the Second World War. And why? Because the US was that time considered as a model state. Yes, because some people, they were going there, there was a poverty in Europe, so they were hoping to do better in US. But why? Because they understood US was a free country. They were thinking, we go to the States, we can start whatever we want to. If we are capable, if we have an education, we can start a business, we can do better. Yes. So this was the reason why all the Europeans came to the US. But at the time, US was actually a neutral country. They didn't want to enter the First World War. The same was happening with the Second World War. Yes. And it was the time when the US was prosperous. And was developing and having all the inventions and all the industry and all these sorts of. But after the Second World War, suddenly, I read to one point that actually President Eisenhower, he was the general and he was actually the head of the Western Front, so he knew very well as a military, and that he was warning President Kennedy to start with that there is what nowadays we call a deep state, that there is this military-industrial complex taking over, that basically it already crossed the line where it was still sorts of acceptable. And when you see the States after the Second World War, it's keeping the largest army. It looks like that the whole economy is running on a war industry, because as you know, any European, any American products, it's mostly like the arm industry or any industry related to that. You have a Boeing civil planes, obviously, but the most money is Boeing and Lockheed and all these. They are doing with the military aircrafts, and this is any sorts of industry. As well, the space program was selling to the military one. It was the same with Russian. That's true to be said, yes. But it was everything developing on the base and in the background with the military purposes. So the America, they have actually to reinvent itself again, to remember when was the America great. So as President Trump is saying, make America great again. In the 80s, in Germany, there was Helmut Schmidt, yes, and it was not yet Helmut Kohl, CDU, but Helmut Schmidt. And he was a very wise man, even to this last years, everything what he was said could have to be actually cast in a stone. And he was saying, what was mistake after the Second World War, here in Europe we took American way of life, which was completely different to the European way, yes? And he said that always the American society was he called that 1/3 society, 1/3 is living normally and the 2/3 are somehow struggling. And he was saying what was the mistake, what maybe Mark you were saying in this way. He was saying that Americans, they should give up some sort of feeling they are missionaries in a world. They are like missionaries bringing their ideas, what they feel this is exactly the right thing. When they are saying we have to export democracy, but to the countries they don't want it at all, or they understand it in a different way. Yes. So there is important to understand there is really this multipolar world, because now you have as well new generations coming in Africa, new generations coming in Asia. You can see what's happening in India, what's happening in China, what is now is the BRICS countries. It's got a certain reason. These countries, they are not doing it just for nothing. They are doing it for that. They understand there has to be another strong force, another strong group of sovereign nations and states, yes, because they are completely sovereign. They are not dominated by a dollar because they are doing the trade in their local currencies. Now they are thinking they may have one new digital currency or something, what will be for BRICS countries. But all this has a certain reason, yes. Or in Africa, when you see suddenly we are reading in a newspaper that the French government was using last 30 years actually principles of colonies in a francophone Africa, yes, that for example you had this local colonial franc, but it has been actually half of the wealth of the country, of the money had to be deposited in a central bank of France, and in order. So that was completely like a neo-colonialism, and suddenly you read it in a press. It was like months ago, because now we have all these sorts of happenings in Africa. So I think the future of America, and everybody would love it, and everybody's waiting. I would say in Europe, when we talk with people, they hope that Donald Trump will be elected again as a president, and actually he would focus on the United States itself to restore the country from the inside, and then the America will be great again. It will be strong and it will be respected. This is my view, and how you share it, but this is the point.
So Dr. Orban mentioned the impressive prosperity of the United States in the past and the need for reconstruction, revitalization. One of the manifestations of the crisis of Western society is its deindustrialization and the loss of its industrial base and technological and economic stagnation. Productive capital has been replaced by speculative finance, and China has become the new industrial workshop of the world. How to restore Western industrial efficiency and ingenuity?
Well, I think unfortunately now the United States' main product that they export is wokeism, LGBTQ ideology, nothing really tangible. President Trump had a great example, though, of how to bring industrialization back to the United States. He told the companies, if you want to have your workers and your factories in Mexico and other countries, that's fine, but we're going to tax the hell out of you when you try to bring any kind of money back. And so that got them back very quickly. All of a sudden, the industry was booming. And it was that simple and that fast. And of course, I'm sure he worked out some deals with some of these businesses. Maybe they have lower taxes if they go to a certain area. He gave them some kind of incentive, so it's worth it for them too. So that kind of mutual cooperation between government and business that benefits ultimately the people in the end. I think that's how you do it. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to ship these jobs out to other third world countries and sell out to the soul of the nation itself.
Well, I would say you are still lucky in the US. You don't have a Green Deal, so you have still chance to industrialize back, But here in Europe, the European Commission and the EU, they are doing all their best actually to destroy completely Europe. Yeah, so this Green Deal, that's unbelievable nonsense. Yes, and well, now in Germany, some industrialists they now actually have a courage to talk, or starting to talk against that, because German mentality is actually follow the orders, So when politicians say do so then everybody does it, But they are saying it's killing completely. Yes, because when Angela Merkel when she started in Germany, they called it Energiewende. Yes, so like a turn in energy industry. Yes, but this Energiewende was based on a cheap Russian gas. Yes, and then what happened in Ukraine and so on, and then EU said, okay, we don't want any Russian oil, any Russian gas. Well, what happened then with the energy prices? And it started to kill completely the industry. Yes, so now what we are facing, for example, Volkswagen was now deciding it. I think that will be more company. There are actually German companies now moving to the US. Yes, because of taxation and because of the cheap energies. Yeah. And for example, the chairman of Volkswagen, he said they will be producing cars only in certain countries where the unit price per kilowatt hour is certain. I don't know what was the price, yes, in dollars or euros. Well, but when you look in the prices of the energy in Europe, then you could see suddenly, okay, the only place maybe is Portugal or Spain, because they have a cheaper energies. They have it mostly as a CNG gas, yes, but definitely not Central Europe and definitely not Germany. So it will be great to do it, but you have to be completely U-turn, and this Green Deal has to be basically, it has to be bent, you know, it's complete nonsense. But it's got to do, you know, here in Czech Republic with Pirates and Praha Sobě here in Prague and Stan, they feel it for them. Yes, exactly. You know, we were discussing Czechs, they are very much atheists, you know, church is not that strong. But as Cardinal Duka was saying that here the Czechs, they want to believe into something because they think something is above us. Yes, so suddenly for these, we call them libtards, you know, for these people, suddenly what is the religion? Is Green Deal and ecology, all these sort of things. So they are not questioning it, they are just doing it. And when you tell them, hang on, it doesn't count together. You know, how do you want to have only solar energy for industry? It doesn't work in that way, or you know, all sorts of aspects. So obviously, industrialization is possible again, but the Green Deal has to be abolished.
Yeah, sure. Well, you said that energy is cheaper in the United States, but actually, Biden stopped the construction of the Keystone Pipeline, which is going to bring energy from Canada to the United States.
Oh, I see.
He stopped drilling. And they would love nothing more than to have the Green Deal in the United States. So don't hold your breath. It might be there soon enough.
So thank you. And last question. In your opinion, do the results of national local elections in some European countries, such as Hungary, Germany, or Slovakia, mean a desired turn towards conservative values, patriotism, and rationalism? And will the United States also join this stream of development next year?
Well, I think when we saw this election stolen from President Trump, that was a big hit to the conservative movement. And we saw this very similar thing happen to Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil. And so I think Prime Minister Viktor Orban in Hungary is probably the last shining beacon of this kind of national populist conservatism. I think he's setting a great example. I mean, he's been hated by the fake news media globally. The United States, they write all kinds of horrible articles about him. Same thing in Europe. He's kind of the black sheep, so to speak. But that's because he's principled and he's setting that good example. And so the more wins we see throughout the world for these strong conservative figures, I think the more it's going to encourage people and show just average people who may not be that politically involved that, wait a minute, maybe the fake news media is lying to me about this as well. Maybe these people aren't these horrible monsters I've heard about. They're not these racist, sexist, bigoted, et cetera, fill in the blank. Maybe they're just average people who love their country. I think people are coming out to that. And so those wins, although they may not seem that significant on a global scale, really are very important. And of course, we'll support any of those people, and we're happy to help build that bridge of cooperation.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope the elections, well, we saw the results in Slovakia. You know, I was just praying, I was hoping that it would work at the end, because I could imagine that that Mr. Pellegrini, he was put under huge pressure not to go with Mr. Fico, yes. So, but hopefully, you know, knock the wood, it would work. Let's see what will happen in Poland. I think that will be with PIS, that will go through. In Czech Republic, let's see. We have a hope. Today, as we spoke with Tomio, he was saying as the numbers are looking and the opinions actually in Czech Republic, that actually we are ready, we are prepared for it to be part of the next government. So as well, keep the fingers crossed. But all this depends on how many people is coming to elections, you know, because you have still a huge number of people who are thinking the change is not possible, so we don't bother, you know. Or many people, they are so busy basically to meet their everyday needs, they don't have the time for politics, you know. Or we are saying, you have a fake news in a TV or radio, you know, you have internet, you have to look for the right informations. But you have a lot of ordinary people, they said, come on, I don't have the time to spend hours in front of the monitor to look for the right informations. And how should I know which one is the right or which one is the wrong? Yes, so this is on us, on politicians or movement, or actually to make sure to people that one of the basic rights of democracy is to vote. and they actually use their vote in a right way. Yes, and then what is very important as well now for the European Parliament elections next year, you see all these patriotic or national parties, conservative parties, they were up to now still too much orientated in their own countries only. So that was not divided, but they were not like cooperating in a sense like the liberals do, or these progressivists or globalists, how you call them. Because it's obvious they have actually one center above them, you know, so they are getting all basically the same papers, you know, so they get a paper and they know what they have to do. But the conservative parties, so far they didn't. And as well in SPD, we are coming with the ideas, and now we are going to different here neighboring countries, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Slovakia, Italy, you know, to join the forces and to have at least some major points of the program we would like to achieve. Yes, and like our chairman Tomeo, he's saying, for example, we are for the Europe, but we are not for the European Union, but we are for that what was beforehand. When you look before the Lisbon Treaty, even before the Maastricht Treaty, actually before was that was Europe actually of sovereign states which were cooperating in a major subjects they saw which is of similar importance to them. And it was not like a federalist state. Yes, because now EU, they have exact route. It should be more and more federalist. And you see what was even shocking me now it was now last week or 2 weeks ago, the President Pavel, the new Czech president, he said he could imagine that small countries like Czech Republic, we will be not having veto in EU. So come on, this is complete, it's unbelievable. Yes, so this is again exactly in this route, federalist state. Yes, because at the moment anyway, EU is ruled by Germans and seconded by French. Yes, but still you have this right of veto. Yes, you see what is Hungary is using it quite a lot, Poland as well. And they are being bullied because of that, obviously. Yes, sure. And they are telling them they will. Well, they stopped financing to Hungary, for example, or threatening to Poland as well. And there is not enough democracy in Poland, not enough democracy in Hungary. You know, obviously they are telling them like this European Parliament Polish members, they are saying, "Come on, what are you telling us? You know, who do think you are? You know, these European commissioners." So, I think Orban, he was to one point saying, "Okay, if you don't want us, kick us out from the European Union." You know, it will not happen, obviously. Yes, because they want to keep them, because they know if they kick somebody out, then the next one will go on its own, and it will be basically like a row, one after the other. So I hope the elections are very important, but we have to more unite, you know, to have as well exchange experiences, you know, because, for example, we saw when we visited AfD in Germany, they have excellent marketing. You know, they do it in such kind of professional way. It's, for example, something we can learn from. And again, we have an experience they're very interested about. Yes. So there are a lot of to do. So I hope it would work at the end.
Thank you very much for your very interesting and largely optimistic views. And let's start the second part of our meeting. And we are expecting views, comments, and questions from the audience. Please.
Thank you very much. Everybody sees me, so I can sit. I would have a few questions. First of all, suppose, with God's help, Republicans win the elections. What will be your actions regarding the Ukrainian war? And I am not speaking just for the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, but I'm speaking about the civil war and the two self-proclaimed states of Luhansk and Donetsk in Donbass area, the eastern Ukraine, that wanted to separate. This is the first question. Second question is how will you cope to this mass LGBT++ propaganda? Because, as you know, this is not just a lunatic idea, it's related to WHO philosophy of sexual education, where they prepare the children in nursery schools and kindergartens how to masturbate, and they supposed to have the first sexual intercourse in 9 years of age. Well, they can try it on my children. They will see how tolerant I will be. And the last question is, of course, what will you do with the other conflicts that are around us? Not only Hamas as a sheer terrorist organization attacking Israel, but also the position of Azerbaijan attacking Armenia and occupying Armenia, and very dubious position of Turkey as a NATO member, and by the way, holder of about 60 nuclear warheads in Incirlik military base. So what are your plans about these three very, very sensitive subjects? Because I believe that you will be in the position to change the world with these three. And of course, I can say it, you have all the support that we can provide to you in the PR and in all the philosophical and the ideological base for your election, because I think that the progressivists have done already enough bad, you know, and it's time for them to go to perdition.
Thank you. Please.
Quite a few questions. I'll try to touch on as much as I can, and I'm sure Dr. Milan will be able to clean it up a little bit. But as far as the Ukraine situation goes, I don't think it's going to be a very long-lasting war at this point, seeing as a lot of countries are no longer supporting the Ukraine. A lot of the United States senators and Congress members aren't supporting it anymore. Even Poland is no longer supporting them, so I don't see that going on for too much longer, hopefully. When President Trump does get into office in 2024, which I am optimistic about, I think that he's gained so much more support, even from people who voted for Biden are now saying, I made a mistake, I wish I had voted for Trump, and I'm going to vote for him in 2024. And so hopefully he has enough votes to overcome any fraud or funny business they try to do, because they're going to do even worse this time around, I think, than they did in 2020. But again, hopefully we have that overwhelming numbers so we can get that victory. And as President Trump said, I think he'll follow through with his promise. We'll probably have peace. If that war is still going on and still hot, we'll have peace within days. I think President Trump will call Putin, have a discussion with him, and they'll resolve it, frankly, on the spot. As far as what happens to the territories, well, I suppose that'll be between President Trump and Putin and Zelensky, if he's still around. So I can't really, make a prediction on that at this moment. As far as the LGBTQ stuff, I think that's kind of become a religion to the left, much like the climate change issue. If you question their dogma, they'll come at you furiously. It's like you question their God, right? If you tell them, sorry, no LGBTQ stuff in here, no drag queen story hour, you can't read to my children, you just basically told them their God doesn't exist. And so you get met with fury, but I think as much as they're pushing so hard, it's awakening a lot of parents in the United States. They're getting involved in their schools now. They're reading the books. You mentioned the pornography books in the public libraries and the school libraries. Parents are going to school board meetings and reading that book out loud and then getting kicked out for reading inappropriate content. Content that's available to their children. And so there's kind of a revolution happening in a way with parents, but I think also a lot of parents are saying, why am I going to send my kids to public school to be poisoned like this, to be exposed to how to masturbate when you're 10 years old? So a lot of people are now homeschooling their kids, or they're sending them to private schools. Obviously, I think that's a temporary solution. You can't just keep doing that perpetually. So something's going to have to give. I think it's going to be the LGBTQ, because parents, even liberal parents, think it's a bit far when you're talking about sex acts to a 10-year-old. And we made the mistake of allowing gay marriage in the first place, because once you open that door, now they keep pushing. At first they said, well, why do you care what I do in my bedroom? Now they're not in their bedroom, now they're on the streets doing their acts. And now they want to come into your home and teach your children about it. I think it was last year, the year before that, in Wisconsin, there was a state legislator who was saying, well, we need to have protections for pedophiles, right? And so now if you oppose that, you're going to be called names like a pedophile-phobe or homophobe because you don't want pedophiles. So it's a lot of madness, but I think the more they're pushing, the more parents are fighting back against it, and something's going to have to give. That religion's going to have to go. You can't have Christianity and LGBTQ in the same space.
Thank you. Another question, please?
There was the question, the Armenia and Azerbaijan and the Hamas, the Middle East.
Oh, yes. Well, so the left was telling President Trump that, telling Trump supporters, he's going to start World War III, he's going to create a conflict in the Middle East. Turns out he had the Abraham Accord, and there was no wars whatsoever. So I imagine when Trump gets back into office, he'll resolve things rather quickly. He's already spoken out against endless wars. He doesn't support that. And so if he were to go to war, which he has said, if we go to war, we're going to strike fast, we're going to strike hard, and then we're going to get the hell out of there.
Thank you. Another question, please?
Well, I can ask one. Does the Republican Party have enough strength and guts to defeat the deep state, and does it actually know what the deep state is doing?
The party itself, no, I don't think so at this time. We saw a lot of the deep state is within the party. I think it's the uniparty, the establishment. They all work together, whether they're Republican or Democrat. There are outliers within the Republican Party who are more America first, more on Trump's side, who do recognize the deep state. They are trying to fight against it. And at first, that was a very small percentage. I think it was maybe 5% of the members in Congress were the America First, the national populist types. Now, after the last election, it's probably closer to 15, 20%. And I think that number is going to continue to rise because the American people are getting out there, especially the Republican activists, are going and voting in their primaries, and they're pushing for the America First candidates. Now that they've seen what could be, they want America First, because before, their options were, well, you could vote for this kind of weak Republican, or you can vote for a communist. Well, they choose the weak Republican. But now they realize, well, we can have a strong Republican. We can have a true conservative, an America First Republican. And so as they keep noticing that and fighting for them, we're going to see them come into power. And once we get more like 40 or 50% of the America First patriots in there, I think then the party itself will start turning towards starting to dismantle the deep state. But as you probably know, the deep state is very deep. And so you have to start one step at a time.
May I have another one?
Yeah, please.
Does the Republican Party have a way of checking that the next election is actually fair, or preventing it from being falsified?
So that's a great question. That's a big concern for all the grassroots activists, because they're wondering, well, if I'm working this hard for the party to get the votes to have my candidate win, but then my state or my county does not secure the elections, what's the point? I just worked my butt off, and now they showed up at 3 a.m. with 20,000 ballots with the same signature on them, and the other candidate won. And so I think red states have taken some measures to secure the ballots. I know Texas is one of them. Florida has done some work on that. Some counties in Arizona as well. But it's going to be a challenge in states like Michigan, Atlanta, Wisconsin. I'm not very optimistic about that. That's why I said we need overwhelming votes in order to win, because if we have mail-in ballots again, it's going to be a disaster. I think a lot of the legislatures are trying to ban mail-in ballots, which would be a great first step. Because the way they were doing these, it used to be that in order to vote, have an absentee vote, you have to request it. You say, oh, I'm sick, I'm out of the country, can you mail me a ballot, and then I vote. But under the mail-in ballot system, due to the COVID virus, they're just mailing out ballots. So you didn't ask for one, maybe you're not even home, maybe you're out of the country, maybe you're in a coma, and you're getting a ballot. And so the Democrat activists would go around to poor communities and say, hey, y'all all received ballots, right? Why don't you give them to me? I'll make sure your vote counts. I'll give you some free pizza, or, here's $5. Whatever they did, they're harvesting these ballots, going back to their office, filling them out, and then dumping them off. And again, Republicans, they were campaigning traditionally. Their candidate would go out and talk to people, shake hands, go door to door. The candidate, Democrat candidate, sitting in his basement, won. He didn't talk to anyone, but he won because his activists went out and got those ballots. And so now Republican activists are saying also, if they insist on having mail-in ballots, we need to play the same game. We need to go to our local church and ask for those ballots. Or tell people, hey, if you don't want to vote or you can't vote, hand me your ballot. I'll vote for the right candidate. And so that's the only way we're going to win, is either by playing their game or by banning the mail-in ballots. But there's always going to be some level of fraud, and you can't stop that. But that was probably the biggest thing that made us lose the 2020 election.
Thank you.
Having an identity card.
Yeah, or an ID card, yeah, which is now controversial.
I think in the process, because now they want to get all these immigrants voting as well, and that would be a disaster. So,
Well, California, they give ID cards to
Yeah.
illegals now,
Yeah.
which no other
Yeah.
state does that. And how do
Yeah.
you stop them from voting if they have an
Yeah.
ID card?
yeah.
Who knows?
I want to ask you about why so many big banks, and particularly J.P. Morgan, I know quite well. Why would they have gone woke? Is that part of what Benjamin was talking about, of the deep state as well? I mean, what makes big, creditable organizations go woke?
That's a great question, and I've wondered that too, because it's not exactly profitable most of the time. In fact, a lot of times when they go woke, they lose money. But I think you have a lot of these new people taking power in the corporations who've been indoctrinated by these Marxist professors, communist professors. So when they go in there, they're not there to make profits for the company as they should be. They go in there to effectuate their agenda. They're like missionaries going out there and pushing their ideology and hoping to convert as many people as they can. And they know that in that position they can do so. And so even if it means banning somebody from their bank, from using their bank due to their speech alone, they're happy to do that, because to them, they're fighting a political battle. It's not, so what if they lost a customer? So what if they lost some money? That person was evil and they banned them, and so they did the right thing. And it's a really perverse thing, and actually no good to the shareholders who have invested into those companies, because they're the ones who are suffering in the end. The executives will still make their money. Even if the company goes under, they'll get a severance package, a windfall, and they'll be just fine. And so it's really irresponsible and frankly immoral.
Thank you. Next question, please.
So I'll take it up.
Please, Ben.
This will be on the SPD. Yes, the conservatism is a completely new image of the SPD. It's new, it's fine, and it looks good and smells good and everything else. The trouble is that the image, public image of the SPD continues to be, say, slightly on the negative side, even among conservative thinkers or conservative voters who are still searching for something like in the Svobodny party or the Tricolora and so on. How is the SPD now going to convince this part of the electorate that conservatism is meant to be serious and the party is on that track?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually what is helping us is the situation in this country. Because we are saying, as you can see as well, the Five Coalition is performing from bad to worse, that people, they are opening their eyes. And what we are saying, we have now the main proclamations and the mottos actually we have. We are completely against the Green Deal. We are actually for saving the family values. We are against the LGBT plus and the genderism. And we want to have the Czech Republic as a sovereign state, being able to decide what sort of national policies we are having in this country. So we can see it in a way that there are actually more and more people coming to us from ODS, there are people from Svobodny, from Tricolora, we are getting people as well now from other parties, even Top 09 they are coming to us. Yes, so we can see slowly this is working, because this negative image, that was the way of the media, you know, because they know people nowadays, as they are so busy, they are reading just the tabloids. Yes, and there were these tabloids in a way. SPD, they are fascists, you know. SPD, they are xenophobes. SPD, they are God knows what. And people, you know, it is really thought through this marketing very well, what this media they are doing, because it's going very straight into the brain. So people, they are remembering it, these short messages. And now we are working against that. So for example, we can see it now in a town hall in Prague. Yes. For example, now when we had the last session, so we were now putting two papers together. When the ANO completely, the whole club, you know, these 18 members of the assembly, they signed that with us. So now we are putting the papers now together, SPD and ANO. Yes, we prepared now a paper where the Dr. Marvanova, you know, she is actually a very well-known lawyer. She was actually as well as a dissident, you know, in a jail. So actually now she's now supporting us publicly, because she's saying this is exactly the thing. Actually, you hit the nail. You know, this is the problem which you discovered. And for example, now we had last now one committee as well on a town hall, and actually now we are being asked as a SPD by Spolu and by ANO and by the others. Yes, they are telling us, come with us, we have to talk about the subjects which is now of common concern for us. So this is now the game is changing, you know, it's taking time, but it is. And actually, you know, what's happening with SPD, you can see it on a Facebook, what's Tomeo saying and the others, what we have now. We are the only Eurosceptic. We are the one actually saying we want to have a referendum. Because this is the way of conservatism. Actually, this is the SPD for what stands for, the abbreviation, Svoboda a přímá demokracie. Yeah, so freedom and direct democracy. We are saying, all right, the citizens, they should have like a right of referendum, which is even in a constitution. It's even in a Czech constitution, but it was never agreed. Yes, it was used in a one time, this general referendum, voting for the entry to the EU. Yes, and at that time there was no limitation. Only if one man said yes, that would be it. You know, and now the SPD, it's putting several times again, we need referendum, and there are coming different limitations from other parties, like 500,000 have to be for it, or 1 million, or it will be even not bounding at the end. It will be just a recommendation. So we are trying very hard to push this through. The social aspects, for example, as well. You know, the care of the elderly. You know, we were completely against what the government did with the pensions. You know, it was complete nonsense. Yes, it was against the people, in fact. Yes. Now this is the same what was with the energies, when we are saying people they should have this you know, in Prague we were saying, for example, have a clean water in Prague. This is one of the basic rights for people. You should have a drinking water. It should not be part of a business, and suddenly you realize this is being mismanaged and whatever. Yes. So these are the conservative values. We are saying we are for that there will be that the family or the marriage, that marriage means, you see, that's why it's called manželství, you know, in Czech, sorry, the translation, but it is coming from a relationship between man and woman. Yes, so these are the conservative values we are now all the time, every day you have it in articles by SPD, on a Facebook, social media, on a TV, discussions about it. And it's changing really. Because we can see it on the support and on this discussion we are now having with the other parties. What before was not happening, because it was prohibited even, you know, to talk to us in a way.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Perhaps I could react to Ben's remark.
Yeah, please.
Do you want to speak first?
Just short remark. Thank you.
I just to add something.
Yes, please.
You know, we are working really hard. You see, our best agents that we infiltrated into the government are working the perfect job in medias, the people do not trust medias even if they are telling the truth, you know. And the people that are in the government are doing their utmost to destroy the economy of the country and the living standards of the people. So they have still 2 years to go, but they are progressing very well, and our preferences are growing accordingly. So our trust in the coalition is big, because we know that without them we will never win the elections. Yeah. So this is just to add to what Ben was saying. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If nobody does, I can still get
Good evening. Mark, I would like to ask you, what would be your advice in general for creating a movement as strong as yours? I just wanted to give a little bit of a background, like when I say this, because when we talk about pillars of a conservatism, we talk about God, country, family. Country for Czech Republic would be, okay, people are very committed. When it comes, for example, to God, half of the country is made of atheists. You have 10% of evangelicals and just less than 5% of Catholics. When you talk about family, you have half of the families here divorced, undone. As a general comment, like I wanted to say, as I think my colleagues here said, this could be quite a strong difference for SPD. Showing commitment to God and to family. I think that is what is missing in the country, and that is what is going to make all the difference for you. Being the example and living in your house what you preach on the streets. So thank you for that, and I would like to hear your answer. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. I think when it comes to that aspect, it's a cultural aspect and a social aspect, and that's where conservatives have probably done the least amount of work in. Is we, like I said, we focused on the economy and low taxes a lot, at least in the United States. But when it came to preserving the family unit, preserving Christianity, which is one of the founding pillars of our societies, we've done a poor job at that, and we've allowed the left to push their propaganda, which says, well, it's not really cool to young people to get married early on. You should focus on your education, your career. If you have kids, you can't travel, for example, things like that, and just kind of giving a negative connotation to it. And also when it comes to church, or attending church and believing in God, the leftist media has pushed a lot of stories, such as sex abuse scandals within the church, but they're also hiding a lot of other facts. You're about, what's the stat? You're far more likely to have your child molested by a public school teacher in the United States than by a priest or anyone in church. But the media will only focus with a microscope on the church and what they consider wrongdoings by the church. Meanwhile, their God, which is the Marxism, LGBTQ, they don't focus on that at all. That's all well and good. And so I think, to answer your question, I think young people need to get involved in the culture war. And we're seeing a resurgence of that in the States especially. A lot of the new generation, they are very conservative. They never even lived in a conservative country, but they're far more conservative than people even in my age group or even older, because they've always been told they can't do this, they can't do that, they can't say certain words. They must go against their nature, their biology, they must be confused about their gender, and they're not tolerating it. And so if we can encourage these young activists to get out there, get involved, they have a lot of energy and a lot of creative talents. They just don't always know where to channel it. And so, I work with a lot of the youth, young Republicans, and help them become precinct chairs and have some control in their party, have some control over the young Republican groups, and because they're the future leaders of our party, and so we need to make sure they're well equipped and they understand the value of God, country, and family.
If could I add to that one thing, Mr. Koras, what we are asking, this conservatism. SPD, in fact, we are reacting on a reality of the world and problems people are facing. And then through the second thoughts, then we are telling them, you see, these are actually conservative values we are taking care of. And this is something what you should cherish. For example, what happened with the pensions, and we were saying these pensions were actually stolen to the retired people. And when we are telling them here as SPD, we have a value for a decent life of old people. You need to have a decent pension, basically. And this is the conservative value that people then they may start to think after. When you have a single moms living with the children, and you realize the country is not doing at all any sort of social housing, or if you have a social housing, just few units in Prague, and you see it's giving to people who are really problematic, being imported outside from the city, being brought from wherever, from Czech Republic, and these single mothers, they are somewhere at the bottom of the waiting list. They are telling them, see, this is the issue we want to deal with. We want to have a social welfare in a sense that you have a social housing. Nothing was built since actually Primat Orban, which is last 20 years. You know, so these are the conservative values which are people then at the end we are helping them resolve, and we have the policies to resolve them and to tell them as well, look, by the way, these are the conservative values maybe you were not aware of, but this is something what we support, what we cherish, and we want to get through. And this is just some of the examples. Education in schools, you know, when suddenly the parents, as you said in the US, the same here, you know, they are just shocked about it, what the children are coming home and telling what they have been taught at schools. When we want to change that, again, that's a conservative value. You know, people, they are not aware of that, but suddenly they are facing these problems in their real lives, and they are looking for a solution. This is what we are bringing.
Thank you. Last question for our distinguished guests.
The last question, all right. Facing this civilization battle between the progressive and the conservative, the school systems play a very important, perhaps key role. And what I wanted to ask is, we lose it in our country, and presumably you lose it as well in your country. It started at 70s, when the universities got progressive, then high schools, now basic schools. And I would like to know, what are you going to do about that? What are you going to do to stop it, if you win, as I hope you will? All these, those goon squad, progressive goon squads all around at schools running about that, influences children, what to do with that? Because you are given, the progressives tell us that the American school system is an example for Czech system, and frankly, we would only be too happy to get rid of that. So what are you going to do with this?
Thank you for the question. It's actually a really good question. The left is they took over the educational institutions, and so they're basically a factory for their Marxism, for their communism. They've also started taking over the military institution, actually. They've been pushing LGBT and transgenderism within the military. They've been allowing out-of-shape people. They've been having affirmative action. So if you're a woman and you're out of shape, you can't do a pull-up, come on in. They have illegal immigrants serving in the military. And so they're taking over that. And they're also pushing on the church. They're trying to have churches officiate gay weddings, having drag queens come in there and talk. So they are very, very steadfast in their mission to take over the institutions, because they know their ideas are not very popular, so they have to force them onto people within these institutions. And I think Governor DeSantis did a good job in Florida by banning these LGBTQ books from the curriculum. Really upset the homosexual community. They called it the Don't Say Gay bill, but it just basically said, you can't tell my children about your sexuality, which is very controversial now, I guess. But that's one way to do it. Another way is to hold these teachers accountable, and I think that's part of the cultural war, the social war. And this account, Libs of TikTok, I don't know if you've heard of them. They're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, but they'll post videos from these LGBTQ teachers to show parents, hey, this is who's teaching your child, by the way. And it's usually someone with like half their head shaved, or they have like a pink mohawk. They just look like it's something out of a circus. And they're teaching your children, and they're proudly talking about their sexuality. They have a BLM flag in their classroom. They have a trans flag in their classroom. And so exposing these people, we've gotten a lot of teachers fired due to a lot of these videos where they're saying how they told their children they don't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Or even worse, they have to pledge allegiance to the rainbow flag. So things like that gets parents involved, and then parents get those teachers fired. So obviously that's, you know, one small step. We need to eventually get rid of all of them. You can't ever get rid of all of them, actually, but you can at least prevent the worst actors. And I think that's the first place to start, is to hold them accountable. And parents also need to get involved and go visit your school and meet the teachers. Once you see a teacher who even looks like that, you're going to call for them to be fired. So I think that's probably the best thing, is more parental involvement. And I think we're seeing that. And I think once President Trump gets back in, the military will be cleaned out. And it'll just kind of restore that sense of purpose and morale, because right now, a lot of Americans are just demoralized. They see all this stuff happening. They see the FBI and CIA being weaponized against parents who are concerned about what's happening in their schools. And so in order to even turn the ship around, we need strong leadership, so we need President Trump in there.
Well, I would say the next question would be, if Donald Trump will be re-elected and you start all these changes in the US, what will happen here in the EU? You know, if they start to boycott Donald Trump, and they will be saying, no, everything here is fine, and suddenly US will be not the model, but that it will be negative model. Or if there will be then a pressure from US to the EU to change it in the EU in the same way. That would be the next question, obviously, you know. Because, you know, when Donald Trump was elected, obviously, you know, the European Commission and all these guys who are running the EU, they were not, well, openly, they were not real friends, you know, of Trump in a sense. So if he will be re-elected, what will be happening here in the EU? Obviously, there are people at the background who are ruling, who are actually pulling the strings, you know, with the EU. What they will be doing?
Yeah, probably a boost in morale. I mean.
Can I have a remark to that?
Last remark.
Last remark. Then I will keep silent.
So you see how big responsibility we put on the result of your election.
True.
But we have now very specific situation because the social changes, the division between progressivists and conservatives, and I would say their ideological struggle is dividing the society throughout the Europe. It's not only here, not only in the States, it's in Germany, in Hungary, in Slovakia, in Poland, in Austria, and also in some Balkan countries. So I believe that the Republican victory will be a big push to this struggle to support the conservative circles throughout the world. Well, I cannot speak for Africa, of course, but at least in Europe, it will have a great influence, and therefore, it's not just limited to the States or to our country. You know, it's all interconnected, and we are cooperating with many other conservative parties throughout Europe. So, good luck.
Thank you, sir.
So, thank you very much for your very interesting views and contribution. It was a privilege to have you here. Thank you very much, and it has been a very productive and interesting discussion. I wish you the best of luck in your efforts, in your endeavor in the future. And dear friends, thank you for your attention and your questions, and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.